It's a significant day, but while the World Health Organization says it's over, it's not over. But there's certainly a lot to reflect upon.
This virus is here to stay. It's still killing, and it's still changing. Last week, COVID-19 claimed life every 3 minutes. And that's just the deaths we know about.
The World Health Organization ending the public health emergency moniker on this. Raywat Deonandan from the University of Ottawa joins us live on 680 CJOB. And I gather that's a technical term because it meets certain criteria. But COVID, as everybody says, including you, is still out there and it's still going to kill, isn't it?
Yeah, what they've done is they've lifted the PHEIC, the Public Health Emergency of International Concern moniker, and the PHEIC is the strongest alert they can issue that signals that there's something going on. And all it is, it establishes a legal requirement for countries to respond quickly and to report data. It also frees up some resources. So they're saying now is the disease hasn't gone away. It is killing people every few minutes. It's just that we're at the state now where everyone seems to know what tools to use, vaccines and so forth. So now is the time to free up resources to attend to other public health priorities. By no means should this be interpreted as the pandemic is over and go back to things as they were in 2019. It just means we're at a different stage of the pandemic.
Raywat, is the alerting system not just in Canada but worldwide a whole lot better now as a result of all this?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I don't know if that's true. What we're talking here is about surveillance, and surveillance is keeping your eye out for pockets of disease. When it comes to COVID specifically, we have some new tools like wastewater surveillance that is being dismantled in some places. It's being underfunded in some communities when in fact it should be reinvigorated. This should be now a permanent piece of infrastructure for public health across the board. So in some ways it's stronger in terms of our technologies, but in some ways it's weaker in terms of our willingness to fund it.
We know here in Manitoba, as of next Wednesday, the mask mandate in long-term care and clinical settings is going to be over. So it does, feel to many people like done and dusted. It's over. Do we still need to be vigilant? Because I think some people will say, to me, it doesn't make sense not to wear a mask in a long-term care home.
100%. Like, COVID is not going anywhere for a long time. It's going to continue to wax and wane for the foreseeable future, and it's going to continue to disproportionately impact certain individuals, older individuals, the immunocompromised, those with underlying medical conditions, and a fraction of the rest of us who don't have those conditions. So for those populations in particular, it makes total sense to keep these mitigation tools that we know work, like mask wearing. I don't know where these what is driving this decision-making in these clinical settings, except this desperate return to a forgotten sense of normal that we have long passed.
And, as Richard said, are we better at detecting these things? I'm wondering if, as you're looking at emerging viruses and mutating viruses that are certainly being monitored, if experts are looking at them in a different way now than they did perhaps in 2019, saying, this could become the next COVID, if you will.
I think there's a lot more concern and vigilance in that sense. For example, H5N1 has always been on our radar. That's avian flu. But now every time a new mammal has been identified that it has jumped to from birds, it sets off alarm bells in a lot more populations. So there's a lot more public awareness. There's a lot more news awareness. And amongst the experts, too, we're a little more, on edge about it. Absolutely. The actual systems, I don't think, have not changed all that much. The infrastructure has not evolved or has not been strengthened as much as I would have hoped it would have been.
So does academia look at how to balance things? That being the risk that is going to continue to our population. And now, of course, we're all more vigilant, having lived through a pandemic, vis-a-vis trying to, carry on and be parents and go to school and go to work and travel and do all of those things.
What we're trying to get to is a point where the professionals, the public health people, the scientists, do the heavy lifting, do all that work in the background, and so the rest of us can get on with our lives. We should be at a point where there's so much vaccine uptake, there's so much high vaccine efficacy, there's so much good surveillance that when certain things pop up, public health can descend upon those cases and snuff them out before they become public threats, so the rest of the world continues on as normal. That's the way things work in non-pandemic years. Things like tuberculosis are popping up everywhere, measles pop up every now and then, but public health descends on them and quashes them. This is the way it needs to be, so that, as you say, risk management doesn't have to be a conscious concern for most people.
Raywat, where are we in that next generation of inoculations for COVID?
Well, the good news is that the White House announced a $5 billion investment in the development of mucosal vaccines, which have the hope of stopping transmission. And those you would probably take via a nasal inhalation. Some countries claim to have them, like Iran and Russia and China, and most notably India, whose version is actually from the University of Washington. But clinical trials are underway for a new generation of these mucosal vaccines. I expect we'll have good human data by sometime next year, and if one of them is good, and if enough money is thrown at it, maybe an emergency use authorization for it then. So I think the landscape is quite hopeful that we can have a good quality next generation COVID vaccine within a year, if not 2 years.
Well, I'm hoping you're right. Raywat, great to talk to you. Thank you. Did we not talk to or arranging a guest that knows him, that went to school with him, Julie?
We're working on it. We're working on it.
All right.
I'm always nervous to say who's going to join us until it's hammered out. But Raywat is definitely the reason we pursued this individual who actually was born in Brandon. So there is a reason for it. So
I hope it works out. That's pretty exciting.
We'll loop you in on that.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Fantastic.
Raywat Deonandan joining us here live on 680 CJOB, epidemiologist from the University of Ottawa.